The hammer slipped from his hand and hit the ground with a dull thud. Aryan stood still, staring at the half-built wooden frame in front of him. Sweat rolled down his face, but it wasn't just the heat. It was something deeper, something heavier. For years he had worked the same way, same tools, same effort, same results, and yet nothing changed. "Why does it never work for me?" he whispered. No one answered. The empty workshop stayed silent. Every day he woke up before sunrise. Every day he worked harder than most people he knew, and still he barely earned enough to survive. Meanwhile, others around him, less skilled than him, seemed to move ahead. Better homes, better lives, better opportunities. It didn't make sense. One evening, as the sky turned orange, an old man stopped by his workshop. He didn't look rich. His clothes were plain, but his eyes carried something rare, calm awareness. "You work hard," the old man said. Aryan gave a tired smile. "Hard work isn't enough, it seems." The old man looked around at the scattered tools, the unfinished pieces, the worn-out wood. Then he said something that felt strange. "Your hands are strong, but your mind is still poor." Aryan frowned. "What does that even mean?" The old man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked up a piece of wood and turned it slowly. "Most people try to change their life by working more," he said softly, "but the real change begins when you train your thinking." Aryan didn't fully understand, but something about those words stayed with him. That night he couldn't sleep. What if the problem wasn't his work? What if the problem was how he saw the world? The next morning, something small shifted. Instead of rushing into work, Aryan paused. He looked at his tools. He looked at his space. For the first time, he noticed the disorder, the randomness, the lack of direction. He always believed that effort alone would fix everything. But now, a new thought entered his mind. What if I'm doing the right work in the wrong way? That single question changed the direction of his day. Instead of doing 10 random tasks, he chose one, just one, and he focused on doing it better than before. Cleaner, sharper, more precise. It felt slow at first, almost uncomfortable, but something interesting happened. The result looked different. For the first time, his work didn't just look done, it looked valuable, and that's when he realized something most people ignore. Effort without direction creates exhaustion, but focused effort creates progress. Days passed, then weeks. Aryan began observing people around him. The successful ones didn't just work hard. They thought differently. They made decisions carefully. They didn't jump into every opportunity. They chose wisely. This confused him even more. All his life, he believed saying yes to everything would bring more money. But now he saw the opposite. The people earning more were saying no more often. No to low-value work. No to distractions. No to anything that didn't move them forward. At first, it felt risky. What if he lost work? What if no one came back? But he remembered the old man's words. Your mind is still poor. So he tried something bold. The next time someone offered him a low-paying job that would take days, he paused. His heart beat faster. This was the kind of work he always accepted without thinking. But this time he said, I can't take this right now. The man left. Aryan felt fear instantly. What have I done? For a moment, it felt like a mistake, but something inside him stayed firm. For the first time, he had chosen value over desperation. That decision didn't bring money immediately, but it brought something else. Respect. A few days later, another customer came. This one had seen Aryan's recent work, the improved quality, the attention to detail. I want something like this, the customer said, pointing to one of his newer pieces. The price was higher, much higher than what Aryan usually charged. He hesitated. Old thoughts tried to pull him back. What if it's too much? What if he says no? But then he remembered his work had changed. His thinking had changed. So he said the price. The customer nodded. All right. That moment felt unreal. Nothing magical had happened. No shortcuts, no luck. Just a shift in thinking, a shift in standards, a shift in what he believed he deserved. And that's when Aryan understood a powerful truth. Your income grows only when your mindset grows, not before, never before. From that day, he became more aware of his thoughts. Whenever fear appeared, he questioned it. Whenever doubt spoke, he challenged it. Whenever he felt like going back to old habits, he reminded himself of one thing: I am not the same person anymore. This wasn't easy. Some days he slipped. Some days he overworked again. Some days he accepted work he shouldn't have, but now he noticed it, and awareness is where change begins. Slowly, his workshop began to transform, not just physically, but mentally. Every tool had a place, every task had a purpose, every decision had intention. And with that, his results began to change too. More customers, better payments, less stress. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened because the real work was never just in his hands, it was in his mind. And once he started training that, everything else followed. Do you know why most people stay stuck, even after they start improving? The question echoed in Aryan's mind as he sanded the surface of a wooden table. His hands moved with rhythm, but his thoughts were somewhere else. He had already changed how he worked. He had started choosing better tasks. He had improved his standards, yet deep inside something still felt incomplete. It was as if he had unlocked one door only to find 10 more waiting. A few days later, the old man returned. "You look different," he said. Aryan nodded. "Things are better, but not enough. I feel like I'm still missing something." The old man smiled slightly. "Good, that means you've started seeing." "Seeing what?" "The invisible chains." Aryan paused. "What chains?" The old man leaned closer. "The beliefs you never questioned." That sentence hit harder than anything before, because Aryan realized something uncomfortable. Even after changing his actions, many of his thoughts were still the same. He still believed money was hard to earn. He still felt guilty charging higher prices. He still thought rich people were somehow different. And those thoughts quietly controlled his decisions. "Your outside work is improving," the old man said, "but your inner script is still running the old program." That night, Aryan sat alone, thinking deeply. What if the real problem wasn't effort or skill, but belief? He decided to test this idea. The next morning, he did something unusual. Before starting work, he wrote down every thought he had about money. "Money is difficult. People don't pay easily. I'm just a simple carpenter." As he read those lines, something became clear. These weren't facts. They were stories, stories he had repeated so many times that they felt real. And for the first time, he asked himself a bold question. What if these stories are wrong? That question created a crack in his old mindset. From that day, he began replacing those thoughts, not with empty hope, but with intentional belief. Instead of saying, "Money is difficult," he started saying, "Money comes when I create value." Instead of thinking, "I'm just a carpenter," he shifted to, "I build things people need." At first it felt strange, almost fake, but he didn't stop, because he understood something powerful. Your brain believes what you repeat. Days turned into weeks, and slowly his confidence began to rise, not loud confidence, but quiet certainty, the kind that shows in your voice. The kind that changes how you speak, how you stand, how you decide. And people noticed. Customers began trusting him more, not because he begged for work, but because he carried himself differently. One afternoon, a wealthy client walked into his workshop. This was not the kind of person Aryan used to deal with. Expensive clothes, sharp voice, clear expectations. "I need custom furniture," the man said. "High quality, no mistakes." Old Aryan would have felt nervous. He would have lowered his price. He would have tried too hard to please. But this time something had changed. Aryan listened carefully, then he spoke with calm clarity. "I can do it, but I don't rush quality, and my price reflects the work." There was silence for a moment. This was the test. The man looked at him, studying his face. Then he nodded. "Good, that's exactly what I'm looking for." That moment proved something important. People don't just pay for your work, they pay for your belief in your work. But the journey didn't stop there, because another challenge was waiting. A quieter one, more dangerous. The fear of losing everything. What if this doesn't last? The thought came suddenly, one evening. Aryan had started earning more, his work was respected, his days felt more in control, but fear still found its way in. This time, it wasn't about survival, it was about security. He remembered the old days, the struggle, the uncertainty, and a part of him whispered, "This can disappear." That fear could have pulled him back to overworking, back to accepting anything, back to playing small, but now he had learned something new. He didn't run from fear. He studied it. Why am I thinking this? He asked himself. The answer was simple, because his mind was used to scarcity. For years he had lived in lack, and even when things improved, his brain tried to protect him by expecting loss. But protection can become limitation. So he made a decision. He would not let old fear control new growth. Instead of shrinking, he focused on building stability. He started saving money. He started planning ahead. He started thinking long-term, not just daily survival. This shift changed everything again, because now he wasn't just earning. He was managing. He wasn't just working. He was thinking like a builder of wealth. And that's when another truth became clear. Making money is one skill. Keeping and growing it is another. Most people learn the first. Very few learn the second. And that's why many stay stuck. But Aryan was no longer the same. He had started training his mind, not just to earn, but to think differently, to act with intention, to see beyond the present moment. And slowly his life began to reflect that. More control, more clarity, more direction. The transformation was no longer just visible in his work. It was visible in his decisions, in his habits, in his thinking, because once you start questioning your beliefs, you stop living by limits you never chose. The sound of coins hitting the wooden table was soft, but to Aryan it felt loud. He counted them slowly, not because he had to, but because he remembered a time when there were barely any to count. The workshop looked different now, cleaner, organized, purposeful. Every tool had meaning. Every project had direction, but the biggest change was invisible. It was how he thought. "You've come far," the old man said, standing at the entrance. Aryan smiled. "I have, but I feel like this is just the beginning." The old man stepped inside, observing everything carefully. "Good," he said, "because most people stop here." Aryan frowned. "Stop? Why would they stop?" The old man picked up a finished piece of furniture, running his hand across its smooth surface. "Because once they earn a little more, they feel safe, and comfort can quietly slow growth." That word stayed with Aryan, comfort. It sounded harmless, but something about it felt dangerous. That night he thought deeply. Was he becoming comfortable? He was earning more now, working less randomly, feeling more in control. But was he still growing, or was he slowly settling? The next morning, instead of starting work, he sat down and asked himself a direct question. What got me here? Will it take me further? The answer came slowly. No, because the version of him that struggled had different problems, and the version of him now needed different thinking. So he decided to push himself again, not out of fear, but out of intention. He started learning new designs, new techniques, new ways to improve his craft, not because he had to, but because he chose to. At first, it felt difficult. He made mistakes again. Things didn't work smoothly. For a moment, it reminded him of his early days. But this time, something was different. He didn't feel lost. He felt challenged, and that changed everything. Growth begins where comfort ends. He repeated that line often. Because he knew how easy it was to fall back, days passed, and something interesting happened. His work started standing out even more, not just in quality, but in creativity. People began noticing a difference. "This is not ordinary work," one customer said. That sentence stayed with him. Because it showed him something powerful. When you invest in your growth, you separate yourself from the crowd. But then came another realization, a deeper one. What if working alone has limits? The thought came unexpectedly. For years, Aryan had believed he had to do everything himself. Every cut, every polish, every detail. It made him feel in control, but it also limited his time, his energy, his reach. So he did something he never thought he would. He hired help. At first, it felt uncomfortable, letting someone else touch his work, trusting someone else with his standards. But he remembered something important. If he wanted to grow, he had to think beyond just effort. He had to think in systems. So he trained the new worker carefully, not just how to work, but how to think, how to value quality, how to focus on purpose. Slowly the workload became lighter, but the output increased. more projects, more clients, more opportunities, and for the first time, Aryan wasn't just working in his business, he was building it. That shift changed everything again because now his time expanded. He had space to think, to plan, to improve. And that's when the biggest lesson revealed itself. Money doesn't come from doing more, it comes from becoming more aware, more intentional, more strategic. And as his thinking evolved, his life followed. But there was one final test, a quiet one. The kind that doesn't look like a challenge at first. A large company approached him with an offer, mass production, fixed designs, steady income. It sounded tempting, safe, predictable, but something didn't feel right. This was not the path he had built. This was not the direction he had trained his mind for. It would bring money, but it would take away control, creativity, growth. He stood there thinking carefully. Old Aryan would have accepted instantly, but this version of him paused. He asked himself one simple question. Does this align with who I am becoming? The answer was clear. No, so he declined. It wasn't easy. Walking away from guaranteed income never is. But he understood something most people ignore. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Some are distractions in disguise. That decision strengthened his clarity, because now he wasn't just reacting, he was choosing, and that is power. Years later, Aryan's life looked completely different, not because he worked harder than everyone else, but because he trained his mind differently, from scattered thinking to focused thinking, from fear to awareness, from survival to growth. And the lesson he lived by was simple. Your brain is the tool that builds your life. If you don't train it, it will follow old patterns. But if you guide it with intention, it will take you further than effort alone ever could. The hammer still rested in his hand, the wood still shaped under his skill. But now every action had meaning, every decision had direction, because the real transformation was never about the tools. It was about the mind holding them, and once that changed, everything changed.